and Morgan Stanley were contracted by the government to make recommendations on privatization. It's clear that the Liberals are only telling us half-truths when it comes to their infrastructure and economic plans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member will have 5 minutes after question period for questions and answers. We will now pass to statements by members. The honourable member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, you can say what you will, the banks are in business with the Minister of High Finance. Tax havens and tax avoidance, they don't want to deal with that because that might hurt their good buddies on Bay Street. Weakening the authority of the financial markets with their real estate market. Well, is that good for the for Bay Street? All right, let's do it. And if the banks want to get out of Quebec's Consumer Protection Act because they don't like having to be accountable to everyday people, well, the Minister of High Finance, well, he can get that done too. We know that not everyone can afford a $1,500 cocktail to meet with the Prime Minister or the Minister of High Finance, but at some point, the government's going to have to leave its friends behind and start working for everyday Canadians.
Saint-Maurice Champlain.
Honourable Member for Saint-Maurice Champlain. Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure for me to congratulate the Shawinigan Chamber of Commerce and Industry on winning the Economic Development Prize, awarded November 23rd by the Quebec Federation of Chambers of Commerce, with its over 140 member chambers of commerce. I'd like to commend the work of the entire team of the Shawinigan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as the involvement of over 600 business people from Shawinigan and the surrounding area. As a resident of Shawinigan, once known as the World Electricity Capital, I know how this honor also highlights the major economic transition Shawinigan has embarked upon on account of the multiple challenges arising from the end of the industrial era. Thanks to the steps taken by local stakeholders, including the Chamber of Commerce, I'm proud to tell Canadians today that Shawinigan is back as a leader in all things entrepreneurial and digital, fields that are resolutely forward-looking. Long live the Morrissey region, Mr. Speaker.
Every year, Mr. Speaker, the Royal Canadian Legion conducts the Poppy Campaign to raise funds for veterans and their families, and most Canadians give generously. But it's disappointing to know that there are those who disregard what the Poppy stands for and our veterans by stealing Poppy boxes. So I rise today to recognize an important initiative in my riding. In response to some thefts last year, Dan Crawford from Cochrane designed a new anti-theft Poppy box. 50 prototypes were created with support from the Cochrane Legion, the Cochrane Chamber of Commerce, Alex Baum of Cochrane Toyota, Garney Baker of EGB Manufacturing, and John Cornish, retired Calgary Stampeder star. These new boxes were placed in high-traffic areas as they garner more donations and are more at risk to thefts. So I'm pleased to say that the donations collected in Cochrane this year have surpassed last year's record totals, as when donors felt the funds were safe, they contributed more. So congratulations on a job well done, and I hope to see this initiative rolled out nationally next year.
The Honourable Member for Whitby.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to take the floor today to congratulate two of my constituents, residents of Whitby, whose contributions were recently recognized by the Governor General.
A teacher at Brooklyn High School was awarded the Governor General History Award for Excellence in Teaching. She was recognized for her outstanding work in educating and engaging her students on the history, culture, and challenges of the Indigenous people in Canada. Whitby Police Officer Constable Christopher Bullard received the Medal of Bravery from the Governor General for selfless actions he took to rescue a driver engulfed in flames.
Ms. Richards and Constable Bolland are outstanding ambassadors for our community, and their accomplishments contribute to making Whitby a better community. I congratulate them both.
The Honourable Member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Kisakukut, Mr. Speaker. At the center of the majestic Purcell Mountains in my riding of Kootenay, Columbia is Gatmuk, the Jumbo Valley birthplace of the grizzly bear spirit and the traditional land of the Ktunaxa First Nation. This area is also part of an ecologically significant wildlife corridor and the site of the proposed Jumbo Glacier ski resort. For nearly 25 years, thousands of Kootenay Columbia residents have been battling alongside the Ktunaxa Nation to preserve Gatmuk and to keep Jumbo wild. That fight came to Ottawa this week with the help of Wild Sight and Patagonia in the screening of the documentary film Jumbo Wild at the Museum of Nature, and by the Ktunaxa's challenge in the Supreme Court of Canada to have their Aboriginal spiritual practices and beliefs legally recognized. Today I would like to celebrate in this House the efforts of the Ktunaxa and all of the residents of Kootenay Columbia who fight to preserve our wild and spiritual spaces. Your efforts are very much appreciated.
For Burnaby North Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, it is a great privilege to rise today and acknowledge the achievements of the Honourable Justice Malcolm Rowe and our shared experience with the Action Canada program. If founding CEO Cathy Bien were here in the House today, she would tell you that Action Canada is a year-long fellowship program that has had a monumental impact on our country since its founding in 2002. I myself was a fellow in 2010 and at the time was assigned two remarkable advisors. The first was Bob Folks, a man who helped get me back into political service, and the second was Malcolm Rowe, who recently became the first Supreme Court Justice to hail from Newfoundland and Labrador. His contribution to both Canada and Action Canada has not only shaped who he is as a person, but also who we are as a nation. Justice Rowe will be officially welcomed to the court in a ceremony this afternoon, and I would invite everyone to join me in congratulating with him on his appointment to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, every year in December, we start to feel the excitement approaching with the holidays. We see Christmas decorations, there are Christmas parties, and we do our Christmas shopping, but at the same time, there are a lot of Canadians who get stressed out at this time of year. They may have lost their job, they may be poor, they may be alone. I'd like to pay tribute to all those people today, all the people who get involved to help these people through these difficult times. In my riding, a number of people and organizations distribute Christmas baskets. They organize events and receptions for the poor. Without naming them all off, I can certainly say that we all would like to thank them for their generosity, for these generous elves who get involved without counting the time they put into it and who provide a little happiness to everyone during this time of the year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, amid the excitement and anticipation of the Christmas season, there are some very kind souls who lift the spirits of those who are less fortunate. Today I wish to recognize Father Stephen Allen, Kenny Zakem, Don Wright, and their team of volunteers. 12 years ago, they founded Santa's Angels in Charlottetown, a dedicated group who work tirelessly each Christmas to deliver food and gifts, along with a visit from Santa to those in need. Last Christmas, 77 of Santa's Angels visited 218 homes, helping an estimated 1,000 adults and children. These volunteers take time out of their own Christmas morning, with Santa's visits beginning as early as 7 a.m., to create a magical and memorable surprise for those who may not have been able to have a Christmas celebration on their own. I know I speak for this entire House when I send out a sincere thank you to Santa's Angels and all of the other local charities that spread joy to our most vulnerable citizens.
The Honourable Member for Hull-Aylmer. Mr. Speaker, it's with great pleasure that I will be taking part tomorrow evening in the traditional Santa Claus Parade in Old Aylmer. This time I'll be accompanied by 50 young people who are part of the Youth Council of Hull-Aylmer.
Celebration of the holiday season, as well as a time to recognize community organizations in the Outaouais. 30,000 people, Mr. Speaker, attend this festive parade each year.
In addition, on Sunday, all across the Outaouais, volunteer teams will be signing cards, and they will make sure that our community truly comes alive during the holidays. So I would invite you, Mr. Speaker, and all my honourable colleagues here in the House, to join with me tomorrow evening or Sunday morning to underscore the holiday season in Hull-Aylmer. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I was disappointed to see the Liberals have chosen to attack policies that are in fact working for Canadians. Saskatchewan is being targeted by the Liberals for implementing legislation that is helping to lower wait times for MRIs. Threatening Saskatchewan's funding for offering a solution that allows for speedier MRIs at no cost to the people of Saskatchewan is irresponsible. This policy doesn't cost taxpayers anything, while the Liberals continue to raise taxes on families, hardworking Canadians, businesses, and now even doctors. The Liberals need to stop threatening provinces, stop spending money on programs that are not benefiting Canadians, and stop raising taxes. This government needs to get the priorities straight and start working for all Canadians. Wait times for detox treatment are at an all-time high, and Canadians are dying every single day, yet this is still not a priority for this Liberal government. The minister needs to work with provinces, territories, and doctors to improve wait times and health care instead of picking fights with those who provide services and those who pay for it.
The honourable member for Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Seva Food Bank is a local Mississauga organization that was born out of HoC Serving Canada in 2010. Since then, Seva has been serving over 700 families a month. Last November, Seva Food Bank came together with the producers of CJMR 1320 AM radio station to mark the birthday of Guru Nanak and hold their 6th annual radiothon and food drive. The Prime Minister chimed in with a message to support this great initiative. I'm happy to report that the drive was a tremendous success, raising over $115,000 in pledges and 22,000 pounds of food. I want to congratulate the 200 volunteers, radio producers, over 20 South Asian grocery stores and gurdwaras who participated in this remarkable drive. Their effort will make a difference in the lives of our fellow neighbours. I also want to thank the staff and board members of Seva. This is the type of organization that I hope to see out of business soon, but until then, our community is immensely grateful for all that they do.
Bravo. The honourable member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, this week on Parliament Hill, the Boys Club Network, through its heart-wrenching play Man Up, invited parliamentarians to recognize that in Canada, we're losing our boys. We're losing our boys because far too many lack a positive role model and, as such, a sense of belonging. The brainchild of Walter Mustapich, Jim Crescenza, together with Laura Newbert, created the Boys Club Network. It's touched 22,000 boys, boys at risk, boys who may have committed a crime, boys who've been to jail, boys who otherwise would cost the taxpayer millions of dollars and yet have grown in to fine young men. As parliamentarians, it's our job to advocate for all. When we support our boys, we support the ability of men to stand strong on their own and our society to stand strong together. I am proud to be in this Boys Club, and I invite each and every one of you to look into the Boys Club Network in your communities for your boys and for the men they will become. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have a constitutional right to trade with fellow Canadians. One only needs to look at Section 121 of our Constitution. All articles of the growth, produce, or manufacture of any one of the provinces shall, from and after the Union, be admitted free into each of the other provinces. It's a rather simple but powerful statement that the Fathers of Confederation sought to make Canada not just a political union, Mr. Speaker, but an economic one. A court decision in 1921 narrowed its application, and ever since, Canadians have suffered ever-increasing barriers to trade. This week, the province of New Brunswick announced it will be seeking leave to the Supreme Court of Canada to hear the case of Mr. Comeau. In their statement, the government of New Brunswick said, and I quote, "The implications of this decision are far greater than simply addressing the purchase of alcohol. It concerns issues of interprovincial trade with significant consequences." I applaud this decision by the province of New Brunswick, as the Supreme Court is best situated to hear, study, and rule on such an important constitutional issue. And it is my hope, Mr. Speaker, that the Government of Canada will support this decision by the province of New Brunswick and support this important constitutional right. Thank you.
The honourable member for Central Nova.
Tomorrow at my alma mater, St. FX University in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, 1,000 students will be initiated into Atlantic Canada's own Fellowship of the Ring. Like Gollum, they're waiting to get their hands on their precious to signify the completion of their undergrad career and to celebrate the Xaverian community. Now, when the member of St. John South Mount Pearl from Canada AM on the TV spoke at my own X-Ring ceremony a decade ago, I was inspired by the infinite wisdom he imbued on the developing minds before him. Now, it seems as though the X-Ring has become a bit of an express pass to Parliament when I see that this chamber hosts no less than 8 rings, including that of our beloved Speaker of the House. However, my career is yet to be as distinguished as many other alumni, who include former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, former Deputy Prime Minister and former Minister Alan J. McEachen, former Premier of New Brunswick and U.S. Ambassador Frank McKenna, novelist Alistair MacLeod, and Celtic musician John Allen Cameron. The thread that binds these exceptional folks together is none other than St. FX. A proud alumnus, I'm excited for 1,000 more ring bearers to be welcomed into the fellowship tomorrow. Congratulations to the class of 2017. Go X, go.
The honourable member for Musqueam-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, the 29th edition of the World Cheese Awards happened recently in Spain. This is a major cheese competition because over 3,000 cheeses from 31 countries are in the competition, and there are hundreds of experts. Despite the tough competition, a cheese producer from Témiscouata won second prize in their category. But that's no surprise for those who already know this cheese. They've already won many awards. And other cheeses from my riding have also won awards. There's also the excellent Grey Owl, which has won prizes, and you can get that in the Byward Market right here in Ottawa. All my congratulations to the winners and owners of this cheese producer and their entire team. This is part of the wealth of Témiscouata, the Lower St. Lawrence, and the whole surrounding area. Thank you very much.
George. Mr. Speaker, in the Caribou, we say what we mean, and we mean what we say. And we expect if you say something, you better be prepared to back it up. I rise today to share with you an email from one of my constituents. Mr. Clark wrote, as a father of 3 girls, one of whom who was sexually assaulted, I was first saddened, then angry with the fact that our Prime Minister felt 1 month was a good sentence for a 50-year-old man that sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl. How can a man that promotes women's equality allow this to happen? How can a leader that should be protecting children and young women allow this to happen? His answer was disgraceful, and for the first time in my life, I was ashamed to be a Canadian and of our laws. When an Ontario court struck down the mandatory minimum sentence of a 50-year-old man who sexually assaulted a 15-year-old, the Prime Minister's cowardly and spinelessly refused to stand up for the victim. This is unacceptable. This is shameful. I challenge the Prime Minister to call Mr. Clark's daughter and explain himself. I'll set up the call.
The honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the award-winning Christkindl Market in Kitchener. This market is based on the centuries-old German tradition of Christmas markets, a tradition which dates back to 1310. Christkindl Market showcases our local craftspeople and artists and acts as an opportunity for our community to come together in the celebration of the season. There's something for everyone to enjoy, from live music and shopping to a parade and freshly prepared food. Thank you to the organizers, sponsors, officials, and volunteers who have once again come together to put on a world-class event. The market runs until Sunday evening, and I would like to invite all my colleagues, and indeed all Canadians, to come to Kitchener this weekend and experience our Christkindl Market in person. Fröhliche Weihnachten. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, question orale, the Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, another day and yet another secret cash for access fundraiser with the Prime Minister and his billionaire friends. We've now learned that just weeks ago the Prime Minister wined and dined over 80 well-connected, wealthy individuals who would stand to do very well if more Chinese investment comes to Canada. These insiders paid $1,500 each to tell the Prime Minister precisely what it was that they needed to make even more money. And you know what? The Prime Minister listened to their wish list. Will the Liberals release the names of who was at this fundraiser, and exactly which government files did the Prime Minister discuss?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to be very clear. We have some of the strictest rules around fundraising of any level of government, and our party respects those rules. The Chief Electoral Officer stated that Canada's political finances laws are, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, the most advanced and constrained and transparent in the world. In regards to ticketed fundraising events, he confirmed that every party, that's every party, in every campaign, do them, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the Liberals don't want to answer the question, so let me help them. This fundraiser was hosted by a BC developer who admitted that he lobbied the Prime Minister to make it easier for rich investors from China to come to Canada. A stunning admission that the Prime Minister is discussing government business at these Liberal Cash for Access fundraisers. It seems that the Prime Minister is being bought. What is the Prime Minister waiting for in order to stop these unethical Cash for Access fundraisers? A knock on the door from the RCMP?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite and Canadians have nothing to fear. We are operating from within the rules. Mr. Speaker, it's important that we recognize that we have the strictest rules around fundraising of any level of government, and our party respects those rules. In regards to ticketed fundraising events, the Chief Electoral Officer himself confirmed that every party, including the Conservative Party, Mr. Speaker, every campaign have the same sorts of events.
The Honourable Opposition Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this government is failing Canadians more and more each and every day, whether it's these unethical Cash for Access fundraisers, whether it's insulting Canadians on electoral reform, or when it's on the economic policy. Today's job numbers are out, Mr. Speaker, and they are devastating. Still not one new full-time job created and more full-time jobs lost. When will the Liberals take a hard look in the mirror, press the reset button, and start doing something in the interests of Canadians instead of their own interests?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. And Social Development.
Behind the honourable member, we have taken bold action to strengthen the economy through historic infrastructure investments and support for families. This is the right time to invest and stimulate growth for the middle class. I would remind the honourable member that employment in the last month increased by 10,700, over 180,000 jobs in the last year. The unemployment rate has also decreased to 6.8%. Good news for our economy. And, Mr. Speaker, be assured that our government's plan is to put people first and ensure that Canadians have access to good, well-paying jobs of tomorrow.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Richmond, Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the only way that the Liberals came up with for creating wealth in the country is by taxing citizens, and we know that that doesn't work. Taxes don't make people wealthier; it makes them poorer. We learned yesterday that in the news that new Liberal tax measures were going to cause an exodus of doctors. Thousands of doctors were going to leave and go to the United States. Will the Minister of Finance stop attacking our healthcare system? That's worrisome. Will he stop siphoning money off taxpayers in Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister. I'm happy to answer the question, Mr. Speaker. We are the government that cut taxes for the middle class. I'd like to remind Canadian citizens watching that the opposition voted against those measures. To come back to the question of doctors, it's very clear this government was elected on tax equity. Everyone must pay their fair share, whether it to be lawyers, doctors, accountants. For all small business created, there will be a tax deduction, a corporate tax deduction. One company, one deduction. Canadians understand that fully well. That's exactly what we're doing for the middle class, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Richmond, Athabasca. I'm eager to see if they're going to repeat the same thing that they've been saying once we've given the figures that just came out this morning. The record for the first year, 30,000 full-time jobs, fewer full-time jobs than in the past. The government hasn't even been in a position to create a single new full-time job over the past year. The Liberals are racking up billions of dollars in debt and for our children and our grandchildren, taxing Canadian families. It doesn't work. We're headed for disaster. When will the minister finally listen to people and give Canadian taxpayers a break?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Member for the question, and I think he will agree Canada needs to make smart decisions and sound investments today to ensure that Canadians have access to good, well-paying jobs tomorrow. We're moving ahead with making those necessary investments that will grow our economy As the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary has said many times in the House, we've lowered taxes for 9 million Canadians. We've introduced the Canadian Child Benefit. 9 out of 10 families will benefit. We've improved unemployment insurance. We are increasing our investments in skills and trainings. Make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, our government is focused on its plan to strengthen the middle class and improve growth to help the Canadian economy.
The honourable member for Churchill, Kiwatanuk-Aski.
Mr. Speaker, let's do a recap. The Liberals got elected promising to change the voting system. The Prime Minister repeated the promise in his victory speech on election night, and as recently as 2 days ago, the Liberal government put together a process that included asking the committee to study, quote, viable alternative voting systems. The committee did this and proposed a path toward proportional representation. But instead of moving forward on their commitment, this Liberal government responded with insults. Our question is, why?
The Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Speaker, it's a great privilege to be here on this Algonquin territory with my colleagues. I'd like to take the moment, Mr. Speaker, to address something. Yesterday in this House, I used words that I deeply regret. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to sincerely apologize to the members of this House, to Canadians, and to the members of this special all-party committee on electoral reform. In no way did I intend to imply that they didn't work hard, that they didn't put in the long hours, that they didn't focus on the task at hand. Mr. Speaker, I thank them for their work.
The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But that doesn't answer the fundamental question, because the Liberals made a commitment that the election of 2015 would be the last one under the current system. We know that some of the Prime Minister's promises were just hot air, but not that one. That promise was crystal clear and precise. The committee spent $1 million to hear from Canadians and experts across the country. Yesterday, the government launched an all-out attack on the committee, unfortunately. Why is the government denigrating and insulting the committee and the hard work of the committee members, including Liberal members?
The Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Allow me to take this opportunity to apologize again for the words that I used yesterday. I thank all members of this House for their hard work, especially the members of the Special All-Party Committee, and I encourage all members to read the report.
The
Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On other irresponsible comments, yesterday the Minister of Natural Resources suggested that the government would turn to the police and the army to contain manifestations against the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Instead of acting in a constructive nation-to-nation manner with Aboriginal communities, the minister threatened to call in government forces, and that's shameful. How can the government defend the minister and those irresponsible and even dangerous comments?
Transport.
The Honourable Minister of Transport. Of course, we all know that the right to protest is part of our democracy in Canada, and we respect that. That was in our platform last year. A lawful protest is allowed. We know that many Canadians have very strong feelings about certain issues, and they're entitled to demonstrate. And we know that Canadians will do so in a lawful manner.
For Esquimalt, Saanich Suk.
Well, Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Natural Resources still suggested that the Liberal government is prepared to use police and defence forces to counter protests against the Kinder Morgan pipeline. What reckless, irresponsible and incendiary language from the Minister, and only 2 days since they approved this pipeline. My question is to the Minister of Defence. Will he remind his colleague, the Minister of Natural Resources, that if he's truly concerned about the rule of law, he should know that in this country, the federal government has no such authority to use our military against pipeline protests.
L'Honorable Ministre du Transport.
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Speaker, one of the cornerstones of our democracy, our Canadian democracy, and we're very proud of it, is the right to protest peacefully. In fact, as I mentioned, we had this in our platform, specifically in the last election last year. We will always respect the right of Canadians to protest when they don't agree with something. They have the right to do it. They feel strongly about it, and we know and we're confident that they will do so peacefully. Thank you, sir.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Special Committee on Electoral Reform conducted an online survey that received over 20,000 responses. It asked specific questions about what Canadians want in their voting system. Next week, the Minister launches the mydemocracy.ca website, asking questions about values relating to electoral reform that are so vague they read like a Myers-Briggs personalities test. So instead of asking about people's feelings, the government could use the questions the committee used. And indeed, the committee has asked the government to do so. Now, the site has not gone live. The minister could respond positively to this question. Will she change the survey? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Allow me to respond positively to this question by offering my sincere apologies to the member for my comments yesterday. Mr. Speaker, we are looking forward to connecting with as many Canadians as possible through a new online and telephone initiative that will ensure that we hear from as many Canadians as possible before we present this House with our recommendations on electoral reform.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, on the one hand, the minister says the special committee was irresponsible, didn't do its work because it didn't provide it didn't provide a specific response. Then the minister says, I'm going to refuse to ask specific questions. I think everybody can see the obvious, outrageous double standard at work here. And here's the double standard they've got. The minister talks about the disenfranchised, those who can't participate in the process. She's reaching out to them. All they have to do is take their iPhone and respond to her online survey, right? So, I mean, the rampant, outrageous hypocrisy here is just unbelievable. Here's the question. There are some specific questions. The committee asked her to ask them. Will she do so?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Member for another opportunity to talk about the new digital initiative we'll be launching next week. And he's right. As of next week, mydemocracy.ca will allow Canadians to have a conversation about their democracy. And something that the Special Committee's report did highlight was the importance of engaging Canadians further and a recognition that while there's no perfect electoral system, the conversation with Canadians needs to take place through a value-based approach. That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker, and we're looking to hearing from as many Canadians as possible before we present our recommendations to this House.
Honourable Member for Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Democratic Institutions insulted the thousands of Canadians who participated in the work of the Committee on Electoral Reform when she questioned the committee's work by saying, we asked the committee to answer very difficult questions for us. They did not do that. Or is it, Mr. Speaker, simply that the committee didn't answer the way she wanted them to? Exactly. Now, we appreciate the apology, Mr. Speaker, but if the minister really wants to make this right, will she take the committee's recommendations seriously and offer a referendum?
The Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Thank the Honourable Member for accepting my apology. I certainly feel better. But, Mr. Speaker, what I also recognize is how passionate the member opposite is about a referendum. I encourage all members of this House to read the report. I encourage all Canadians to go online beginning next week and become engaged and empowered about their democracy.
The Honourable Member for Banff Airdrie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, not only do the vast majority of Canadians expect a referendum, but according to a recent poll, it turns out that even 74% of Liberal supporters want one too. Instead, the government is talking about a postcard and a website. Now, let's be clear, Mr. Speaker, there is no other form of citizen engagement that's a replacement for a referendum. Certainly not a postcard or a website or telephone calls. If the minister is actually serious about listening to each and every Canadian and actually serious about the apology she's made, will she commit to taking the recommendations seriously and offering Canadians a referendum?
The Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
As I said yesterday in the House, there are concrete recommendations in the report that the committee presented to us, like the need for greater engagement of all Canadians in the conversation on electoral reform. This past summer, members of this House held conversations in their ridings. My parliamentary secretary and I travelled the country, as did the Committee on Electoral Reform. Next week, we'll launch an online initiative that Canadians can also access through the telephone. We'd like to hear about their thoughts on the values that they'd like at the heart of their democracy.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Louis-Saint-Laurent.
Better is to ask Canadians where they stand about electoral reform, and let's call a referendum. Monsieur le Président, quand on...
Mr. Speaker, when we are in a democracy, we aren't afraid of what citizens want, what they think. When we're democratic and we're sure of our position, we're confident that we will have the confidence of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, why is the government refusing to ask Canadians what they think? Why is the government refusing to hold a referendum on election reform?
Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Member opposite and I agree. We need to hear from as many Canadians as possible before we move forward on legislation, on electoral reform. And Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we're going to do. Starting next week, Canadians will have an opportunity to not just have a say, but to learn more about their democracy. We want to hear from them the values they'd like shaping their electoral system, and we're looking forward to hearing from as many Canadians as possible before we introduce legislation in this House.
The Honourable Member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's not because the Minister doesn't agree with the conclusions of the report prepared that she should shelve it. Thousands of Canadians were heard during those consultations. From sea to sea, the Conservative Party received more than 80,000 letters that were sent into us to say hold a referendum. 80% of people said we need a referendum. The best way to be on a solid footing for an electoral reform is to hold a referendum. Will the government do what Canadians want? Will the Canadians hold a referendum, yes or no?
For Democratic Institutions.
Members of this House who hosted town halls in their ridings, I'd like to thank my parliamentary secretary for his continued work on this effort, and I'd like to thank the members of the special committee who've travelled far and wide and the Canadians who have taken part. Mr. Speaker, there are 15 million households in this country who will receive an invitation in the mail starting next week. Some have already begun to, inviting them to be part of this conversation so that before we make any final recommendations on electoral reform, we've ensured that we have heard from as many Canadians as possible. We're going to do that, Mr. Speaker, and we're looking forward to doing something that's not been done before.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, the government promised to fix the Phoenix pay system by October 31st, but over a month later, people in my riding of Essex are still going without a paycheck. People are afraid that missed paychecks will lead to missed mortgage payments, which will cause people to lose their homes. Phoenix has been a train wreck, a national disgrace, causing undue stress and anxiety for tens of thousands of Canadians. When will the government finally fix this shameful mess?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is no question that the ongoing pay problems are unacceptable, and our sole focus is on doing what we need to do to ensure that the people who have earned their salary get every dollar of it. We are working hard. We continue to do so. We've put a number of measures in place, and Phoenix is our priority, and that's what we will do.
The Honourable Member for Musqueam-Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, the figures came out this morning that the Liberal economic plan isn't working. The economy is unstable. We've lost some 8,000 jobs last month. Since the Liberals took office, some more than 30,000 have been lost. In the manufacturing sector, 12,000 jobs lost. And since the Liberals took power, 50,000. Among young people between the ages of 15 and 24, 40,000 jobs were lost last month alone. Can the Minister of Finance tell Canadians that what they will do to adapt to this new situation? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank him for this opportunity to remind colleagues that we know the measures put forth by the government have created more than $140,000 over the past year, Mr. Speaker, and that is because of the choice that Canadians made last year to support the government that will invest in infrastructure in the middle class. And not only are we taking action for Canadians, even the head of the IMF, she said she hopes that Canada's plan will go viral across the world because it's a plan for Canadians and for jobs here at home.
Arnia Lambton.
Well, the unsavory facts on the Liberal Cash for Access fundraisers continue to evolve. A BC developer paid $1,500 to attend the Prime Minister's fundraiser and even admits he lobbied the Prime Minister to make it easier for wealthy investors from China to come to Canada. Mr. Speaker, this is in direct violation of the conflict of interest policy, which says we're to avoid potentially inappropriate lobbying. So will the Prime Minister finally put an end to these Cash for Access fundraisers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that we recognize that only Canadians can actually donate. We have some of the strictest rules around fundraising of any level of government, and our party respects those rules. Mr. Speaker, I will repeat. The Chief Electoral Officer stated that Canada's political financing laws are, and I quote, the most advanced and constrained and transparent in the world, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
No answer at all. Mr. Speaker, the evidence shows that the Prime Minister is being lobbied by Chinese communists looking to invest in Canada at $1,500 a plate Cash for Access fundraisers. Now we learn the Natural Resource Minister is planning to sell Canadian oil sands operations to communist state-owned companies. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister willing to sell out Canada to the Chinese to raise money for the Liberals, and when will he put an end to these Cash for Access fundraisers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, our government has a balanced approach of openness to ideas, people, and investments, while making sure that decisions about foreign investments are taken for the promotion of Canada's interests. Mr. Speaker, the Investment Canada Act provides for review of significant foreign investments in this country, and also the Act provides for review of all foreign investments into Canada to protect national security. Mr. Speaker, these rules are in place. The honourable member knows this, and her colleagues knows this very clearly, that these rules are in place, and we want to make sure that Canada is open for business in the right and appropriate manner.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to try in French this time. Am I dreaming? Another Cash for Access fundraiser? It took place on November 7th with some Chinese businessmen, very wealthy ones. And this week, the Minister of Natural Resources, out of just said he thinks they're going to be talking about taking restrictions off Chinese investment in the oil sands. Are we seeing a new Liberal scandal in the making here? When will the Prime Minister put an end to these dubious practices, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, again, to make it very clear that only Canadians can actually donate to political parties. We have some of the strictest rules around fundraising, as I've said on numerous occasions, of any level of government, and our party respects those rules. And again, I will quote the Chief Electoral Officer, and I quote, most advanced and constrained and transparent in the world. He's referring to our financing laws, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Well, let's talk about the rules, Mr. Speaker. The government is really taking Canadians for fools. There are clear rules that the Cabinet put forth. The Prime Minister said that there should be no preferential access or appearance of preferential access to organizations or individuals because of financial contributions they're making to politicians or to the political parties. Does the Prime Minister take his role seriously? Does he know how to read? Does he understand what was written there? And will he respect Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, not only can I read, I also understand. And I would again emphasize once again, in Canada, we have some of the strictest rules around fundraising of any level of government, and our party respects those rules. And I'm going to quote the Chief Financial Officer once again in regards to Canada's political financing laws. And I quote the Chief Electoral Officer, most advanced, constrained, and transparent in the world, in reference to the financing laws of Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, the Columbia River Treaty is nearing the end of its 60-year term and needs to be brought up to date with 21st century needs and to ensure Canada is receiving the benefit it deserves. A renegotiated treaty would better address the protection of the river's ecosystem, issues around climate change, and First Nations rights that are completely ignored in the current treaty? When will the government truly begin renegotiation talks, and will they ensure that local voices are heard at the table?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Oops, go on. Well, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of, I'm sorry, two people get up there, Foreign Affairs.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Which Canadians are very proud and Americans are very proud. We're looking forward to those discussions with our American neighbours and, of course, looking forward to collaborating at the national level, internationally, of course, but also with First Nations and local communities. And I can tell you as a British Columbian, I have worked quite closely with local mayors even to ensure that we come up with a treaty in the best interest of all Canadians. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
It's pretty clear Liberals only want consensus when it suits them. The Prime Minister sure didn't see consensus before approving the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Nanaimo First Nation in my riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith feels betrayed. Former Chief Kowalson says this project puts at risk our way of life. He also said the decision was, quote, premised on a denial of Aboriginal people's rights and voice. Why has the Prime Minister betrayed First Nations and our coast? Where's their need for consensus now?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the previous government who had a history of failing to engage with our Indigenous communities, our government is committed to a nation-to-nation relationship. The fact is, Indigenous communities signed benefit agreements worth over $300 million on this project, and we're providing more than $64 million for an Indigenous Advisory and Monitoring Committee to oversee operations. And we're also establishing an Economic Pathways Partnership, creating training and job opportunities for Indigenous groups. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government understands that investments in science help us attract and retain some of the best talent in order to continue our proud tradition of research excellence in Canada. This morning, the Minister of Science announced the latest results of the Canada Research Chairs competition. Can the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Science update this House on what the government is doing to support Canadian researchers?
Thank you, Mr. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to research excellence, science-based decision-making, and delivering results for Canadians. Today, the Minister announced an investment of $164 million for 203 world-class Canada Research Chairs at 48 universities. Their research will lead to advancements in healthcare, engineering, and the environment while growing the middle class. And I am pleased to share with the member from Laurentides-Labelle that this new cohort of Canada Research Chairs will include one of the largest proportion of female researchers since the program began.
Bravo. The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfail.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday when asked about the Marijuana Task Force report, the Justice Minister categorically stated, and I quote, "The report was not available. There is no evidence that this report has been leaked." That's nonsense because the evidence is mounting. On November 16th, Liberal-connected pot stocks skyrocketed for no apparent reason. Now details of the report have started appearing in the media, first in the Globe and Mail and now the National Post. Everyone knows there's been a leak. Can the minister tell this House whether she's launched an investigation into who leaked this report?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise and advise the member that his speculations are completely without merit and absolutely false. Let me be very clear. No member of this government has yet seen the task force's final report. We will see it at the same time. We will see it at the same time as every member of Parliament when it is made public in mid-December. And as the member well knows, capital markets in this country are strictly regulated, and the regulating authority for the Toronto Stock Exchange is the Ontario Securities Commission. They're an independent body responsible for looking into any evidence of market irregularities.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, as the marijuana legalization scandal continues, media have reported more troubling facts this morning, which suggests that the Marijuana Task Force has indeed leaked. It seems like the only person who has not seen this report yet is the minister herself. A Liberal task force with Liberal recommendations to legalize businesses that belong to their Liberal buddies. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Justice open her eyes, put on her minister's hat, and ensure that a formal inquiry has been put in place on this discredited task force?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been unequivocal from the outset that we are committed to legalizing, strictly regulating and restricting access to marijuana to keep it out of the hands of youth and to keep profits out of the hands of criminals. We are taking a public health-based approach to establish a system, to enforce a system of strict production, distribution and sales of marijuana, to advance and to provide the best advice on what is the best regulated regime for legal access to marijuana. The government appointed a task force in June. The task force finalized its report on November 30th, and that report will be delivered to the government and made public in mid-December.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Health Minister has threatened to cut health funding to Saskatchewan. Why? Because of their new plan that has provided 2,200 MRIs over the last 9 months at no extra cost to the taxpayer and well within the confines of the Canada Health Act. Perhaps the Liberals should take lessons from Saskatchewan instead of racking up more deficits and raising taxes on all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, why won't the Minister stop attacking Saskatchewan as they work to reduce wait times and provide residents the services that they need?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, we believe strongly that access to medically necessary health services should be based solely on medical need and not the ability to pay. In Saskatchewan, some individuals are being asked to pay in order to achieve faster access to MRIs than individuals who can't pay for them. That seems to run counter to the principles of Canada Health Act, which our government strongly supports. Minister of Health have asked the Saskatchewan to put an end to this practice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Mr. Speaker, as a former provincial health minister, I know full well the challenges that are facing health care today. And to meet those challenges, our highly trained professionals have formed partnerships so they can work in teams and Canadians can get the service they need. Now, these partnerships are taxed as small businesses, Mr. Speaker. Now, we all know what the Prime Minister thinks about small businesses. He thinks they're just a tax dodge. And so now the Finance Minister is changing the tax rules, forcing these healthcare specialists to likely move to the United States. Will the Health Minister today stand up in this House and confirm that she will tell the Minister of Finance to reverse this policy before it negatively impacts Canadian families?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear. The members know well. He sits on the Finance Committee. Mr. Speaker, what we said is that we appreciate the work that doctors are doing across the country. What we said is that we're going to clarify a rule that provides in this country that if you have a small business, you're entitled to one small business deduction. Canadians get it. Everyone gets it. That's about tax fairness, Mr. Speaker, in this country, and we'll pursue our on the road with that, Mr. Speaker, because that's the right thing to do for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Last week, another whale died after becoming entangled at an open-net salmon farm in British Columbia. That's 2 dead whales in 3 weeks. The science and the evidence is clear. Open-net salmon farms are literal death traps for marine mammals. My bill before Parliament aims to transition harmful open-net salmon farms to safe, closed containment systems to protect marine mammals and wild salmon. Will the government finally get serious about protecting marine mammals, and will they support my bill?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I share the concerns of my honourable colleague. In terms of his first question about whales, our department is charged with ensuring the safety and security of our marine environments. It's very regrettable but rare that these events take place, and our department will continue to work very closely with all interests to ensure that these species are protected. We are taking this very seriously, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, in Abitibi-Témiscamingue, people pay a very high price for cell service, and they get bad or inexistent reception. Some people have to leave their homes. If there's clouds, you might get 1 bar of service, but otherwise nothing. on large sections of the highway, it's impossible to call emergency services. This is unacceptable. When will the government put in place a credible plan to ensure that there's good cell coverage for the people of rural areas? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allowing Canadians to communicate amongst themselves and with the rest of the world is at the heart of the digital economy and Canada's modern economy. Our department has just launched a program that was announced in the 2016 budget, a program that will promote internet connections for Canadians across the country, and for Canadians in rural and northern areas. High-speed internet access will lead to greater economic growth. So, Mr. Speaker, this is work that we will continue to do to promote the digital economy. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the government increased the number of CF-18s that the Army has to have ready at all times to create a capability gap. This change was made 5 minutes before they decided to purchase 18 out-of-date Super Hornets, and now we've learned that the government is deleting compromising information. A defense report on the lifetime of the CF-18s and on the exorbitant cost of an interim fleet has disappeared. So now we're starting to understand why a number of public servants have been put under a lifetime gag order. What are the Liberals hiding from Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada always prefers to be open and transparent, except when classified information is on the website. That report has been deleted because there was potential classified information there. They're looking at trying to repost that report as a redacted report. It should be noted that a mixed fleet is not optimal. Possibly the Conservatives should have thought of that 10 years ago, so that when they should have held an open and transparent competition.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we know that this government loves communist regimes, Viva Fidel and Maoist China, and now they're acting like the Soviets. Every time there's a new leader, they're rewriting the history books to serve their own legend. The Liberals are doing this with the CF-18s. They're creating a false capability gap. They're changing policies. They're silencing those who worked on the file and deleting compromising documents like the report on the CF-18 lifespan. This government story doesn't make any sense, Mr. Speaker. Other than their gross incompetence, what are the Liberals hiding from Canadians?
Secretary,
maybe, Mr. Speaker, a little Conservative history would be in order. When the Conservatives announced the F-35 purchase, it was 65 jets for $9 billion. $9 billion became $16 billion. $16 billion then became $25 to $27 billion. Yep. $25 to $27 billion became $42 to $45 billion. Then they were the only government in the history of Canada actually cited for contempt. And then they dropped the program, Mr. Speaker. Now the jets are 10 years older, and now the minister is trying to repair this very unfortunate situation, largely caused by the previous government.
Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, very clearly this government is changing their story on foreign and defence policy all the time. In a desperate bid to get a UN Security Council seat, the Liberals are preparing to send the Canadian military to fight in a place where they will almost certainly encounter child soldiers. While they scramble to figure out their policy on shooting child soldiers, many Canadians are wondering why this wasn't considered before a commitment was made. So why are the Liberals, without a plan and without a vote in the House of Commons, sending our troops into a situation that clearly looks more disastrous every day, again, simply to get approval at the UN Security Council?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence.
I want to thank the Honourable Member for his question, because it does raise a very serious issue when contemplating a peace support operations. It does demonstrate a willingness on the part of the forces to change doctrines when necessary. And I want to thank General Dallaire for his contribution, for forcing us all to rethink the doctrine with respect to child soldiers. This is clearly a good outcome from the Defence Policy Review and puts the Canadian military at the forefront of military thinking in international affairs.
Yeah. The Honourable Member for Nepean.
Mr. Speaker, safety in the transportation sector is a priority for my constituents of Nepean. Following the tragic collision between an HoC transport bus and a train on September 18, 2013 in Barhaven, The Transportation Safety Board recommended that all commercial passenger buses must be equipped with dedicated crash-worthy event data recorders. Can the Minister please inform this House on the action he is taking in order to address this important matter?
Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member from Nepean for his important question. Safety obviously is a key priority, and our thoughts are still with the victims, the families of the victims of this tragic accident. As you know, the Transportation Safety Board investigated this accident and made a number of recommendations. We always value their recommendations, and earlier this week the government put out an RFP for a feasibility study on the possible use of event data recorders on commercial buses. Thank you.
The honourable member for Peace River Westlock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last month the Liberals used Shell to claim support for their devastating carbon tax plan. However, Shell, citing bad government policy, cancelled the $10 billion Carmen Creek project in Alberta, killing thousands of jobs in the town of Peace River. This is only the beginning. Companies from across the country will continue to abandon Canada because of the Liberal carbon tax. Why is this government listening to companies rather than listening to struggling Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are very pleased that we are working with provinces and territories to develop a made-in-Canada plan to tackle climate change. I'm also pleased to announce that 93% of Canadians live in a jurisdiction where there is or will be a price on carbon pollution. I am working very hard with all the provinces and territories to help them design a system that makes sense for them, which creates jobs, and that ensures a better and more sustainable future for our children and grandchildren.
The Honourable Member for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, it is extremely important to Canada's economy to have efficient highways that connect us to our families, communities, and to goods and services. Can the Minister of Infrastructure explain how he is helping communities in British Columbia to connect faster and more effectively?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Now that's a great question, Mr. Speaker. There are many important hubs along British Columbia's highways, and that's why we approved projects worth $310 million for those highways, with 50% of the cost covered by federal funding. This is for upgrades and expansions along the Trans-Canada Highway, including $48.5 million to the Salmon Arm West project for connecting communities and moving goods. We're working with the provincial government to improve access to local roads and businesses. We will always be there for British Columbia.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are borrowing every failed Kathleen Binns policy. Bin was forced to apologize for driving energy prices so high it is unaffordable for seniors and families. Bin had to end her Cash for Access fundraising scheme because everybody demanded she stop unethical shakedown. Bin also had to admit her infrastructure team built a bridge upside down. Why don't these Liberals take Kathleen Binns' lead, apologize, and quit following all her bad ideas?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Let me
to
tell
the
you
Minister
where
of
we
Finance.
get our cues, Mr. Speaker. As we did Budget 2016, we went across Canada. We heard from 250,000 Canadians. We received about 5,000 submissions. That's what we did.
We were doing so well. I just want to remind everyone that while someone's answering a question, we can't throw another question at them and expect them to answer a second one. They won't hear it. So I just want to ask everyone to stay calm and let's finish question period on a high note. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I think we bring the best out of them when we speak. Mr. Speaker, what we can say is that in Budget 2016, in the Fall Economic Statement, we listened to Canadians. We went from coast to coast to coast, and the policies you're seeing in the budget and the Fall Economic Statement are about Canadian families, are about job, or about the middle class, are about inclusive growth, or about infrastructure. That's what Canadian wants. That's what they told us on the 19th of October. That's what we're going to do.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, do you want to see proof that Francophones are second-class citizens in Canada? At the RCMP, 16,000 jobs require English, but 19 jobs, only 19 require French. That's so unbelievable, so ridiculous, it's just an absolute joke. In a Quebec that's independent, we'll have a French-speaking national police force. Mr. Speaker, this is Canada. A country that makes a mockery of Quebecers and all francophones. This is shameful. How can the minister justify this aberration?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's linguistic duality is a fundamental characteristic of our country. The RCMP has received and welcomes the recommendations from the Official Languages Commissioner, and they will respond promptly with a remedial plan.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the federal strategy to promote climate change, Kinder Morgan and Enbridge have just received shiny new pipelines, and that despite the opposition of many municipalities and First Nations and people and environmentalists. This leaves TransCanada in limbo as it keeps lobbying for Energy East. Quebec is worried, and with reason, because now the government has proved that it couldn't care less about social license. So I would ask the Minister of Natural Resources to answer me. Will he, yes or no, put an end to Energy East?
Member for, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
There we go. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. As we've said many times, our governments believe that major projects must be reviewed by a province that carries the confidence of Canadians. The National Energy Board process to review Energy East project continues. This week, Canada took a step forward in creating thousands of good-paying jobs for Canadians. The Trans Mountain Expansion and Line 3 projects will go forward because they met our strict standards to address economic opportunity while protecting the environment we cherish. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, with C-29, the federal government is protecting the banks from Quebec's consumers and from the act that protects them. That means that Quebecers will no longer have any recourse when hidden fees are imposed by banks or when they're taken advantage of. Quite the precedent. Tomorrow, it's the cell phone companies who are going to ask the federal government to protect them from consumer protection laws. Then it's going to be internet service providers, cable companies, airlines. Mr. Speaker, I would ask the Minister of High Finance and his personal secretary, when will this stop? When will they stop taking away Quebecers' consumer protection? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are proud of Bill C-29, and I would remind my colleague that what we have done, Mr. Speaker, and he knows this very well, is that the Supreme Court's Marcotte decision has asked us to require consumer protection measures across the country. That is exactly what we are doing. We have modernized and simplified the rules, which will benefit consumers across Canada. And, Mr. Speaker, there are rules in C-29 which will allow Canadians to use a larger number of pieces of ID to open a bank account. This is a bill that will help consumers.
Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions for the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard. The effective Atlantic and Pacific Integrated Commercial Fisheries Initiatives have enabled a self-reliant Indigenous commercial fishery, benefiting First Nation communities on Canada's east and west coast. Implementing this program in Nunavut would generate economic growth and benefit Inuit communities on our nation's northern coast. Will the Minister make this initiative a national program and ensure long-term financial certainty by permanently including this program in the departmental budget? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague and good friend from Nunavut for his question. I share the point of view that my colleague has just raised when it comes to fisheries, fisheries that are sustainable and based on scientific evidence. We believe that this can offer good economic opportunities for Nunavut. The programs that my colleague refers to on the Atlantic and Pacific coasts have allowed us to build solid relationships with First Nations, and we are very happy to work with him and with partners in Nunavut to continue to develop good commercial fisheries for the North and for Nunavut. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's it for question period for today. C'est terminé. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 36, Bracket 8, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's response to 14 petitions today.
Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. Introductions of private members' bills. Okay. First reading of Senate public bills. Motions. Okay. Presenting petitions. The Honourable Member for York.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to present my first petition in this House of Commons on behalf of the students at Madonna Catholic Secondary